Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to bring on a guest now is with a great organization, Project 21 Black Leadership Network. He is an ambassador for them, the former Attorney General of the great state of Indiana, lawyer, consultant, advisor, speaker, and author, former prosecutor, and wears a lot of hats. And we love the fact he had some time to share with us here today on the program. And let's welcome Curtis Hill Jr., who's with us here on the program. And Curtis, how are you, sir? Welcome.
I'm good, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
You know, I wanted to have you on the program because it seems like our cities are exploding with crime. It seems like things are just spiraling out of control. I'm from New Orleans. We're the murder capital of the nation. Certainly we see problems in Atlanta, Seattle, Portland, New York, Washington, Chicago. And all of these cities are run by progressive Democrat mayors. Is there a connection there?
There absolutely is a connection. Not only do we have progressive Democrat mayors, but the law enforcement system, the justice system, is largely operated by Democrats as well in the large urban areas, and more so by what I call a social justice network of DAs. These are individuals who've been recruited by nefarious folks on the left to come into the justice system, to run for prosecutor and dismantle the system as we know it based on the constitutionality and focus on what they want to do on a personal agenda. And the result of that is that the cities across America are dying. Crime has spiked to incredible heights, new numbers that we hadn't seen in several years, and it's all because of leftist leadership.
You know, we've seen riots break out in some of these cities where you have hordes of teenagers going into stores and gas stations and just taking what they want, and police say they're not getting involved because they're in fear. They don't have enough numbers to take on all these different folks that are participating. And then you have DAs that don't seem to be prosecuting. And you've got a new mayor in Chicago and talking about we've got to understand the criminal and understand that where they're coming from. And what about the victim, Curtis? What about the victims here? Why don't they have the same sort of compassion and concern about victims?
The victim is being ignored completely in these big cities. The mayor-elect in Chicago is incredible. You've got 2.8 million people in Chicago, and we can't do any better than the types of people that have been elected in that city. It's phenomenal. We have to find ways in which to proactively engage with youth. There's no question about that, but not at the time they're committing crime. When someone is committing a violent crime or rioting, that needs to be dealt with decisively and openly. That's not an opportunity to say, well, let's stop and listen to what they're doing, because while we're listening to the cries of the criminals, the cries of the victims are going unanswered.
Exactly right. And I didn't think Chicago could get any worse than a Lori Lightfoot, but maybe they have. I mean, it's incredible. And all these big cities are talking about problems having recruiting officers. I know it's a problem for D.C. I know it's a problem for other big cities. It's a problem for New Orleans. We're hundreds of officers short of where we need to be, Curtis.
Who would want to be a cop today? When you have your leadership, your own leadership, telling you to stand down during riot situations and not backing you up or supporting you. When you have these recommendations to do away with qualified immunity that protects police officers from personal civil liability, it's very difficult to get someone and say, look, we're going to give you a badge, we're going to give you a gun, but we're not going to support you. You're going to lose your home. You make one mistake, one error, and it's all done. It's no wonder that our hiring pools for police have gone dramatically down. And so what happens is you're getting police officers who aren't as prepared and aren't as ready for training, and more mistakes are occurring.
Yes, and let's go to another big city, of course, the biggest of them all, the Big Apple. And the House Judiciary Committee had a hearing and brought forward victims that were ignored by the DA, Alvin Bragg. Democrats claim that they were just trying to deflect attention from Trump and do some sort of PR stunt. I thought it was important that they did that to show that this DA there is focusing on Donald Trump and something that happened years ago in a non-disclosure agreement. I mean, a petty thing, a misdemeanor, putting all the resources and time into it, yet people are being killed, raped, robbed, mugged right on the streets of New York, and victims aren't getting any kind of satisfaction from the DA. And these criminals, as one of the victims' mothers pointed out, Madeline Brame, back out on the streets, Curtis.
You know, it's shameful what's happening in cities like New York. Crime has gone off the charts, and the response of the local DA is outrageous. It's a classic case of targeting. I mean, if you look at the Trump situation, we're talking about an event that was over 5 years old, had been declined by his predecessor, and had been reviewed and denied by the Department of Justice. And it's not like the predecessor New York DA or the Department of Justice are friendly to Trump. They took an approach of, hey, this is a so what thing here. It's a tawdry tabloid story that doesn't need to clog up the system. But that's exactly what Bragg has done. And the purpose isn't necessarily even to get a conviction. The purpose is to start us on a downward spiral where we start throwing criminal allegations into our political mix. And what the surest thing that's going to happen now is the other side is going to look at this as a tactic and say, well, if they're going to do it to us, we need to do it to them.
And that could very well occur. We shall see. I'm not only worried about some of these DAs that are funded by George Soros and have extreme progressive agenda. I'm also concerned about what I see at the Department of Justice, Curtis, and what to me seems to be a weaponization of that department. I grew up thinking that the people at the FBI and the Department of Justice were impartial and fair and reputable. Now it seems like they're just political hacks.
Well, what we're seeing across the board is a government out of control, and out of control in an effort to take control of people. We've seen this particularly in the last 2 years with the pandemic, the lies, the misinformation, the accusations coming our way, when in fact it's government that is oppressing the truth. And so we're getting away from absolute truth. We're getting into moral relativism, and all of this is being done to, in my estimation, destroy America. Some by dramatic intention, and others who are just going along because they don't know any better.
So we have about a minute left, Curtis. What are the answers? How do we wake up folks in areas across the country that keep electing people that seem to be doing harm to their communities, harm to the people there? What can we do to turn things around in our country?
Well, the good news was that Lori Lightfoot got 17% of the vote in her reelection bid, so they tossed her out. They didn't like what they were getting. The bad news is they put somebody in who may be just as bad or worse. So it's hard to determine what can be done. We have to get to the truth of the matter. We've got data on our side that demonstrates, in particular, the black community, for example, the detrimental effects of Democratic policies for the last 60 years. It's in the books. Our problem is it's very difficult to get that message out to a captive group, and the Democrats have done a superior job of keeping the black community under wraps in the backyard, if you will. And our job is to make sure that we speak the truth and engage these communities, and much more so than what the GOP has historically done.
Right. Much better job needs to be done, because I think the truth is on our side. We just need to communicate that, reach out, and be much more effective in getting in front of people that we haven't in the past. But Curtis Hill, thank you so much for the work you're doing, and thank you for your time today. Really appreciate your perspective here on the Ringside Politics program.